Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Land Bank's board meeting, our board agenda for Friday, April 12th, 2024. And I'm Bobby Wilson, the chair of the Land Bank. And at this time, I'd like to have the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairman Wilson. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Kalchuk. I'm the Assistant Manager of the Pittsburgh Land Bank, and I will be calling today's roll. Councilman Bobby Wilson.
Here.
Councilman Daniel Lavelle. Councilman Kahari Mosley. Director Wanda Wilson.
Here.
Director Jennifer Cash Wade.
Here.
Director Karen Breen. And Director Steve Mazza.
Here.
We have a quorum. Back to you, Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, as we do after the agenda, we have public comment on both sides of the agenda. So at this point, we're going to enter into this part of our agenda. Please use the raise hand function in the bottom menu if you wish to speak during public comment. And as a reminder, public comment is taken at the beginning and the second time. So to begin, please state your name, neighborhood, and organization affiliation. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
All right. This is Sally Stadelman, manager of the Pittsburgh Land Bank. I'm going to call if anyone who would like to speak, if you could raise your hand. We have a couple participants on the line here. All right. We've got Billy Vaughn. Billy, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Billy Vaughn and the neighborhood side of Pittsburgh. And I just want to acknowledge I'm here with a group of students at UPrep, and they're just learning learning how to advocate for community. So they're listening to me because we're doing some education on civic engagement for their community. But I wanted to give a public comment to ask, and I know this will be answered at a later time, but when an organization acquires a property in a community, is there a community meeting that is held for those residents to come out to be able to hear about the project and to be able to be a part of that process? And if so, is there a schedule where community members know these properties are being acquired by organizations through the land bank? So that's my public comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Billy. And we'll try and be entertaining for your UPrep students watching today. Thanks for joining us. I don't see any other hands raised among our participants. So I do just want to pause for a moment. If anyone else, I'm not sure. I see Juanita Godfrey online. Anyone wants to make a comment at this time?
Well, if there's
okay.
No
back to you.
raise of hands, then we can move on to the.
Oh, okay. All right. So Juanita has raised her hand. I figured she might be. All right, Juanita, you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Flourish.
I am glad to be here today, and I'm very concerned about the homes on Marsden Street and Hazelwood. There's been a squatter in one of the houses there. There have been children going in and out of the houses there. I'm afraid that someone will light a match and take down the whole row. I've taken pictures of the inside of those row houses before, and they're in deplorable condition, with the ceiling falling in, the floor falling in. And I've called 311 a couple times, and they said call the police because the door was wide open. I'm extremely concerned about those row houses. And that's basically my comment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. All right. I do see we have Councilman Mosley, if we could move him into the panelist position. Okay. Any other participants interested in making public comment? Okay, I'm seeing no raised hands, so I'm going to send it back to our chairman.
Thank you, Sally. So move on to the chairman's report. So throughout the past several weeks, council has been taking interviews with the mayoral appointments to the Pittsburgh Land Bank. And there are three appointments. There were three appointments that were sent over. Tammy Thompson, and that was, I believe Tammy's interview is being scheduled by council as we speak, for a council interview. And then Tamara Dudakovich was confirmed and will be joining us shortly in our next meeting. And then the third appointment was, I'm sorry, I should have stated that I'm going to go back. Tammy Thompson, if confirmed, would replace Wayne Fontana's seat, which has a term to expire in January 1st, 2027. And then, as I just mentioned, Tamara Dudakovich would be replacing Doug Anderson. He had a term that would expire January 1st, 2027. So, and then also the third one, which I had not mentioned yet, is Kirk Berkeley, and that would be replacing Karen Breen with a term to expire January 1st, 2027. So, Kirk recently had the interview, and then he would be up for confirmation this next Tuesday. And with that, we can move to the board meeting minutes, and if someone would like to make a motion to approve.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
All right, that minutes are approved. That moves us on to treasurer's report. And we have Wanda, if you'd like to take it from here, and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Hello, everyone. We have the financials for review through March, and a very happy balance sheet is the news that I can report. So if we wanted to go to the next, I hope we have, I don't know, do we have the balance sheet? Well, here in the activity statement, we see that we have the ARPA grant revenue came in last month in March. So that was, that's going to enable us to do a lot of the work that we've been planning. And I'm not sure, do we have a slide with the balance sheet on it? Here we go. So that shows our, our total equity of 1.7 million, which is a strong balance sheet indeed. So that's a great thing for us to report. Then we also see the various, we track our funding sources as well, and show how they're being spent down. So that's what this slide shows. The other thing I would note, if in the income statement slide, was that, it's missing the expenses of, so if you look at the second to last or the last column there, in terms of the total expenses, that's missing a big chunk of expenses, which is the staffing for the land bank, which hasn't been booked to date as far as these months show, because it's done on a quarterly basis with the URA invoicing, and just with the timing of dates of when this meeting is held and when the invoice gets completed and put forth, we'll actually be approving that that invoice for payment. But we're really missing $88,000 of expenses that you're not seeing on this report, because it's actually going to be paid in April. So it's just something to note as we're looking at the financials, that's not in here, but is an expense that has been incurred. We'll see that on next month's financials. When we're seeing April, we'll see that line item then. So again, similarly, here's expenses for March, but again, about 29,000 of staff expenses just to kind of think about as well. But these are the expenses for the month, all, kind of regular operating for the various transactions that have been approved and various operations of the land bank. Nothing I would point out particularly in those expenses. So I would put forth a motion to accept the financial report through March and to approve the expenses for March.
We have a motion to accept.
So move.
So moved.
Feel free to say second right now. Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, Chairperson Wilson.
Got two more approvals there. Which we could probably just call, if the chairman, you want to call the vote on those unless if you want to make any comments.
Yeah, I would just say, as I mentioned, we see a quarterly invoice from the URA for staffing for our land bank staff and support staff at the URA. And for the first quarter of 2024, it's $87,988.86. And for the fourth quarter of 2023, that invoice was revised. I think it was missing one of our land bank staff not being in that invoice. So there was some corrections that were made. And the total amount for that is $85,448. And that was again for the fourth quarter of 2023. So, we now have those invoices, and I would put forth a motion to approve them. Do we need to take them as two separate things? So I would make a motion to amend the URA invoice for fourth quarter of 2023 to include those additional staffing costs. The total being $85,448.86.
We have a motion to amend.
So move.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions? All right, motion to amend passes.
And then the motion just for to approve the invoice for the first quarter of 2024 for the URA, the land bank staff and the URA support staff. I would go ahead and make that motion. We would just need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? Our motion passes. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time on that. Then,
And if I could just make a note, so thanks to our ARPA funding, we are able to cover 100% of our staffing costs, both including land bank staff and the URA staff that support the land bank. But this funding will only apply to 2024, and we still don't have funding secured to cover staffing costs for 2025 and beyond. The note for the board.
something about a staff person saying that is not, feels very impactful. All right. No, I'm not saying it as a joke. I'm just like, it just resonates more every time that's said. All right. So that moves us on to staff updates.
All right. So first we wanted to provide a quick update on the roughly 54 parcels that are in the land banks pipeline. First, we want to celebrate a very small but mighty sale that we were able to complete to a private buyer. I really want to highlight Emily Kochrock's work on this sale. This was a parcel that had originally been part of a much larger package, but it just simply didn't fit within the intention of work because only half of this garage had been purchased. So, you know, a simple way to just get the property back into use, to get it back on the tax rolls, was to sell it to the person that already owned the other side of the garage. I think we faced a lot of barriers trying to get this sale done, and we were able to get it completed, and I'm so glad. I was very impressed with our staff work here. So, you know, it should just be a very simple run-of-the-mill sale, but I did just want to point out how often with these parcels, there can be so much hiding that can cause some barriers and really drag out a sale, but we were happy to be able to get it done. So, okay, next up, I am so pleased to announce that we have had 16 properties transfer into the land bank's inventory since our last meeting. So those are the properties that you see here. The land bank is just beginning the quiet title process on these parcels. We're estimating that process will take somewhere between 6 to 9 months. And once the title is quieted, we will then sell those properties to the mostly the organizations that you see here. And we've reviewed these proposed sales at our November 2023 board meeting. We go to the next here. And so, of course, in the meantime, the land bank will be maintaining these properties. And on this slide, 205 Glen Calda has transferred, and we are waiting on the remaining properties for Pittsburgh Housing and Development Corporation that we are hoping will arrive in the next couple of weeks. All right, just a quick reminder of that timeline there. Okay, and this is so this is the next batch. If you recall, the board approved in January. We are expecting these to transfer within the next couple of weeks. We'll then be working with our identified partners to do some immediate stabilization while we work to quiet the title, and then ultimately sell these properties, which are intended for affordable housing. Okay. Same with these. We're hoping to see these transfer in the next couple of weeks. All right, and these were passed 2 months ago. They were just approved by City Council on April 2nd. So we are probably a couple months away from these being transferred into the land bank's inventory. And so for the public watching, if you want to go back and learn more about any of these projects, you see in the headline, we include the board meeting where we have discussed the projects. So those are all available on YouTube and our website. All right. And then I wanted to highlight some pending sales. These are properties being sold out of the URA's inventory to the end users identified here in green. So we're coming up, I think I want to say the end of May is where we're aiming to close for the majority of these. And some successful sales. Okay, next, recall that the Pittsburgh Land Bank has been donating to the city of Pittsburgh to pay a third-party law firm to clear the title on property remaining in the property reserve, which is property that's been earmarked for community development corporations. So the properties highlighted here are our updates. You can see we've 639 Lincoln Avenues recently transferred to the URA. The Mount Washington CDC has acquired 2 properties. Those are actually being purchased by the Hilltop Alliance for I want to say it's a LIHTC deal for some affordable for sale housing development. Oh, I shouldn't say affordable housing development. Actually, might be rental. We have some properties that have arrived and are now available for the Brighton Heights Citizens Federation to purchase. So we've been in communication with Brighton Heights, and the board may be seeing these properties come before the land bank soon, as we may consider acquiring these on behalf of Brighton Heights to be able to repurpose them. So stay tuned. I think we're getting very close to the end here. You can also see, and let me just point out too, so you can see 1266 High, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, is on this list. So the land bank has paid to have that title quieted, and there's been a couple challenges there, but it soon should have a quiet. All right. And just to point out, if anyone is looking for information on these sales, it's available on our website. You go to our pending sales page. Next, we just wanted to share with the board, I'm going to be joining a panel this weekend. This is open to the public. So if you'd like to come see the land bank speak at the People's Assembly for Fair and Equitable Housing, that is tomorrow. The programming runs from 9:30 to 3:30, and it is on the University of Pittsburgh's campus. And finally, we just want to remind board members that as board members, you are required to file an annual statement of financial affairs with the state. So if anyone has questions or needs help, please let us know. And I think if we haven't already, we'll be sending that form as a reminder. All right.
All right, well, it's
Back to
getting
you.
close to the deadline if we're gonna be shamed into doing the financial interest.
Like every year.
Yeah, we'll get it done. All
I think
right.
we fill those out too as staff as well. So it's a self-reminder.
Nice little add in there,
Yeah.
Sally. I appreciate that. That moves us on to action items, and the action items that we have for us. So I'm happy to go over this. It's not really, we're not going to take an action on this.
A little bit of information.
This really could have been in the chairman's report,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we were.
but just for clarity, we're not going to take a vote on. We have a couple, there are 2 items here. Let's see.
Well, I think we're
So
looking.
there are 2 items that I'd like to just go over before we get into.
We do have a vote to authorize entering into the agreement at the end of the update on the ICA, on the legislation.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that yes, it's kind of like a lead in
Okay.
into the.
Yes, we can go over that. I apologize, this will be an action item. All right. So this intergovernmental cooperation agreement, this is what we've been talking about for quite some time with the 3 taxing bodies. So the missing link here for making us even more successful is for us all to be on the same page with all the 3 taxing bodies, the county, the city, the county, and the school. And I say us, I mean the land bank, because for several reasons, and I'll just point out ones for myself that I think are super important, which is most important, the sheriff's sale, because we do have right of first refusal to go to sheriff's sale and acquire property. But I think the main, the sticking point here is that we don't have an agreement. So we would be going and we could possibly, have to pay multiple liens from other taxing bodies if we didn't already have an agreement in place. So to put it all down on paper and to make sure that we're all on the same page with the sale price, essentially through multiple steps throughout the process, but sale price, then actually the taxes that could be collected on that property. The state gives us the ability to collect up to, I believe it's 50% of the taxes over 5 years, the first 5 years. And so it's items like that are super important to not only paying staff at the land bank, but also making sure that we're all on the same page with our process. So that is the first, and Sally, you're more than welcome to go throughout, that agreement process and explain it more if you'd like. But the goal is here for us to, what I believe is to, allow the land bank to be a party because at the city, we've already authorized the mayor to enter into agreements. And there is discussion at council right now in terms of just some of the specifics of, how we, how we're all in lockstep in terms of what's all going to be in the agreement. So there is some further conversations happening at council that you'll see. But council is not, what they're not trying to do is not allow the mayor to do that. We fully want the mayor to go in, and we've already voted on that. And so that's not part of the disagreement. So some council members feel that they would like to, and that's what we'll be discussing, is that they'd like to have more of a say in what's actually going to be finalized. So council's working through that, but the mayor is already authorized to enter into those agreements. So our action before us here today is to authorize the land bank to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the city of Pittsburgh, county of Allegheny, and the Pittsburgh Public School District, and the manager and or board chair, vice chair is hereby authorized to execute an intergovernmental cooperation agreement and related documents. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion on this? I don't want to rush this at all. If anyone has any further discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. That moves us on to item B, which is the sorry, before we move on, what I want to mention was that there is also a separate piece of legislation at the city that was already at city council that was already passed, which upon this three taxing body agreement, the ICA agreement being completed, then that would activate the expansion of the board, and the seats would be expanded by 2. So it would be two additional seats to the board, which would allow the county and the school board to send over their appointments. So that's hinged upon this agreement being finalized. I just want to mention that. I guess that's why I was, I could have included something in that chairman's report, but this is perfect to include at this point. So, all right, that moves us on to item B. And this is empowering the land bank manager as an authorized signatory to a quiet title process. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? I'm sorry, any opposed, abstentions? Motion passes. That moves us on to resolutions that will authorize the acquisition from the city of Pittsburgh to the Pittsburgh Land Bank for the conveyance to end users.
All right, thank you, Chair. So I am so excited today to present to the Land Bank Board some proposed new programming. We have 4 parcels that we have before the board. Today we are just asking for the approval of the acquisition. So we will have time between this acquisition and a sale. But I'm really looking forward to hearing some feedback on the program proposal. I also have Mike MG here with me today, who is a URA employee. I'll give him a moment here to introduce himself in a minute. So what I wanted to propose for this first set of votes is so URA quality control and inspection staff prepared a report on the 4 homes that we reviewed in Spring Garden. And so I think it might be easiest if we review that report first, and then we go and vote on the 4 properties. Does that make sense to everyone? Is that all right? Okay, just because it's a separate PDF, and I think it'll make it a little bit easier. And also easier on Emily, who has to toggle back and forth here. So I have a few copies floating around. If anybody needs mine, I'm happy to pass it over. All right. And so, and let me just for a little bit of context here. So, we've, as land bank staff, we've working alongside of many community development corporations on, helping them to acquire property. And so we have the support of the Community Alliance of Spring Garden and East Deutschtown to try this pilot programming in their community. This is in the larger context of, there's a lot of other vacant property and structures in this community where they are looking to do larger affordable housing development. They're working with the Rising Tide Partners and the City Bridges Community Land Trust. So these are 4 properties within a much larger context of planning. But they are beyond the capacity of what the community organization currently has to responsibly acquire and sell them. And so that's why we're really, really excited to step in and start this pilot programming. So let's just talk through these houses here. We're going to start with 1266 High. And so there were several other houses we toured in addition to these, that were in such bad shape that we could barely walk through them. So these are the 4 that seemed salvageable. Are salvageable.
Addition to banner. Again, my name is Mike MG. I'm an inspector of the Urban Development Authority of Pittsburgh. I've been here since 2022. I have a background in general contracting, and I was a foreman in the Steelworkers Union for the previous 12 years before I came to the URA. So the first one we have on here is 1266 High. There's a lot of overgrowth on this property. It's on the end of High Street. It's got a total of 5 rooms, 3 bathrooms, 1 full bath.
I'm sorry, I feel bad interrupting, but
No, please.
I just want to get my bearings here. So we're discussing A, B, resolution 43, 44, 45, and 46. And
Yes.
like everything in Spring Garden we're discussing, right?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
And then we'll move on for a separate
Yeah.
discussion in Marsden.
And we'll
So-
go back, right? We'll go back to the individual discussion approval for those.
Yeah, sorry I didn't catch this earlier, but I'd like to
Yeah, please.
make a motion for all these bills at once,
Sure.
and then we can let's do this in the discussion phase before we vote.
Okay, we can, the trouble is that a couple of these are pending concurrence. And so we have to say something a little bit different for each one. We can do that. If you'd like, we could read the resolution. I think we can, and then we'll go back to talking about 1266.
I mean, are we amending they're all motion to approve, right?
Yeah, well, Emily reads out the resolution itself, and so she'll have you can see that some of them say contingent upon concurrence. And it's not for everyone. So we just have to read them all. But we can do that.
Yeah,
You feel okay reading that resolution right now for A? And
All
then
we're
we'll-
doing is
we'll
just
go back.
reading the resolution.
Yeah.
Resolution number 43, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 24C, Lot 133 in the 24th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to an end user contingent upon receiving concurrence from the Department of City Finance.
I'm gonna read down through.
Yeah, you want to do each one? Okay.
Yeah, do each of the spring, if everyone's in agreement, I think then we can have the full discussion within, the discussion period.
No. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and then we could vote on all of them at once. And then if there is someone that would like to abstain from them, then you would identify which one you're abstaining to.
Absolutely, Chairman.
Or not abstain, but if you're, against it, you vote no or abstention, either one. Yeah.
Resolution number 44, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 24C, Lot 165 in the 24th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to an end user. Resolution number 45, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 24C, Lot 167 in the 24th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to an end user as a side yard. Resolution number 46, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 24C, Lot 192 in the 24th Ward from the city of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to an end user contingent upon receiving concurrence from the Department of City Finance. And finally, a resolution authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 24C, Lot 150 in the 24th Ward from the city of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to an end user.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the resolutions that were read?
So moved.
Second.
All right, let's continue the discussion. Thanks.
All right. Mike, do you want to tell us a little bit about this summary of work here?
1266.
Yes, and we've got some pictures on the screen of the condition of that property.
Yeah, all these properties to our Assistant Director of Architecture, Nazine, and both of our civil engineers were with us to do the walkthroughs of the property. This one at 1266 had a significant amount of overgrowth on the property, which was an issue. The property sat for a long time vacant. There was a little bit of structural issues you can see in both the bottom pictures and the top right pictures. After discussing these were all properties, this property in particular is something we thought could be salvaged and saved with some money going into the outside landscaping and foundation work. So we were hoping in the range of about $10,000 for foundation work, landscaping, some concrete repairs, general cleanup of the inside of the property. A lot of these properties are just filled with, debris, trash. But consensusly, we thought this was a really good property. Everyone agreed on it. It's in a good spot. It's got 2 porches. It's got an access in the front porch and an access in the back. So it's got some good curb appeal, but can be cleaned up properly. Anything else you want to add?
And so a couple things to point out to the board, and I do have some slides to really go through what these phases are going to look like. But our goal here, and I think 1266 is an extra special case because it will come to us with clear title, is we want to spend the least amount of we want to do a minimal investment just to make sure this property is secure and dry and we're able to walk buyers through it. And then we want the buyers to have the opportunity to put together their plan. So the reason that we have this scope of work here, first and foremost, is we have to be able to compare the total estimated cost of bringing this property back to a livable condition with area comparables. So we know that there's not going to be an appraisal gap and we'll be able to sell the property. Someone will be able to get a loan to be able to get the work done. So the 2 things we're trying to accomplish here is what immediate work must be done upon its arrival in the land bank's inventory so that it's safe, secure, clean, not a blight on the street. And will it be feasible for someone to purchase the home and be able to take a loan out to rehab it?
One of the other things I want to add is this property was dry. There wasn't years of water and rot and termite. So that's a big plus. A lot of these properties have had leaking roofs for 30, 40 years. They've been vacant, holes everywhere. So there's a lot of deterioration, a lot of termite, a lot of rot from water. This property was pretty much dry throughout the whole property, which is a plus. So.
Is this a duplex? Half of a duplex?
Now with the.
Single family, yep.
Is that the picture?
When you're looking at these properties in whatever neighborhood you're going to, is it a property that's going to help stabilize the street? Number one, and on the cost, how are you coming up with the cost of what you're saying the repairs are going to cost? How do you figure that number out? Just as your experience as a general contractor, or are you going price and materials, thinking about the materials and all that stuff? That's something I would think.
Experience. We had 3 other people too that, we kind of all came to the consensus of those numbers. We work a lot with our contractors to the URA. So we kind of use some of their numbers too to see where contractors would come at. Most of the time when it's government work, prices are a little bit higher. Everyone comes in high. It's just how it is. Yeah, so it's kind of consensus between all four of us. As far as the area, Sally might be able to.
Yeah, with the comparables or did that answer your?
You're looking to stabilize the neighborhood, the streets, when we're going out, looking at these vacant properties in a certain area. There's the community's coming to us and saying, hey, can you help us stabilize this area? We want to take these houses. Just give me an idea.
Yeah, so I think that we are looking to have the community indicate to us that they are interested in this kind of programming first. That's first and foremost. And then we're looking for areas like this where, I think what's exciting about doing 3 properties at a time, there's a lot of vacancy on High Street. And so we are trying to do a little bit of a concentrated investment to help stabilize the whole street. So we know like there is some indication the market is there, and I can talk about this a little bit when I have a slide with comparable sales. But it doesn't seem to be quite reaching this area. And most importantly, we are a key to unlocking these properties, right? They've come into the public inventory because they've become so underwater with back taxes that they aren't accessible by anyone. And so it's key for us to step in and make them available and remove barriers to get the kind of buyers that we want.
I had some questions here. So could you help us understand why we would go to the level of, not just structural repairs, but I'm seeing new kitchen, bathroom.
Yes. So, and I apologize, Chairman, because this should be a little more broken out. The land bank investment in this property is just to clean the structure out, remove the vines, and to make any repairs to actively stop water and active deterioration. So we're not expecting to spend more here than, maybe probably around $10,000 to complete that work. We need to know what that
said.
We're estimating we probably won't spend more than or around $10,000 to do a clean out, to stop water from entering the building, and to remove the vines. We also have a lead and asbestos test that we'll complete as well.
Yeah, where
And
is
those are
10,000?
On 1266. I think it's the first. Sorry, what's the first
So it's 12,700.
number? Yeah, thank
you're
you.
at-
12,700 is what we're estimating to just clean the building out, make it
We would
safe to take
spend
care of.
12,700 ARPA
Yes,
dollars to.
right.
So-
And then, but we need to know what the total cost of rehab is to make sure there's not an appraisal gap. So we have to compare the total rehab cost with area comparables to know that our buyers are going to be able to access a loan to complete the work. And so if we know it's going to be 95 to get this done, and then, for us to sell and recoup what we've put into it, we need the buyer to be able to take out a loan of at least $150,000. And we have to know those numbers will work for the area. And that's why you're seeing a full scope of work like this. But we are not going to complete this work. We're not selling a rehabbed house, we're selling a shell.
One more. So, Mr. Chairman, so what you're doing basically is stabilizing the white box.
Yeah.
That's it. You're just making sure it's warm, safe, and dry for somebody to walk through in that house, and you're trying to, with the market, stabilize the market by keeping everything comparable in that area when you're doing the 3 houses or whatever, 3 different properties, to make sure that everything's the same, not too high, not too low, so we can attract people to come and take these properties, correct?
Yeah. Exactly. All right. And then, so do we want to do a quick overview of the other 3? And then I do have, and maybe if it's helpful, I could run through the programming slides now before we look at the remaining properties, because I think that might help to answer some of those. What do we think? Do you want to hear a program overview before we look at any more numbers? What do you think?
What, to move on to the next one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's do the overview.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. I think we. Okay, so we'll pause here and I'm gonna go over exactly what this is going to
We
look
definitely
like.
need to separate out what we're planning to spend.
Yeah.
Yeah, versus what, the proposed amount of work that would need to continue to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and we can definitely go over that as well. So these properties that we're looking at that are up for vote are going to be part of a pilot direct residential sales program, right? So the purpose is that we're looking to remove barriers to homeownership or responsible ownership, while preserving our existing housing stock. Our intention here is to clear all barriers, which is, making sure there's a quiet title, and that the house is accessible and tourable, so that we're listing these on the private market and we're following as much as possible a standard private market sales timeline and process. So what this looks like is, first, land bank staff start with data, and we're using data to identify these homes, right? So at this current moment, we're starting with property in the city inventory because it is what is most accessible to us. And then we're using the status in the city's inventory, as well as information like a condemnation score or whether something is on the active demolition list to determine where we're looking first. Of course, community support and interest, it plays a role there as well. Once we've kind of narrowed those homes down, and with these, we've kind of done a drive-by as well, because you can tell if like half the house is gone, might not be worth walking through. And then we take that list, and we go to the city and we request access through the city of Pittsburgh's finance department, to tour each home. Then QC&I staff prepare a stabilization plan as well as a full rehab plan for each property. Again, with the intention of land bank providing some very light stabilization services so that there's not active deterioration occurring to the property. With that, and then having a full rehab scope to compare with area comparables, which is of course our next step there is to make sure there are comparable sales prices in the area, to make sure we're avoiding an appraisal gap. And this is the step we're on right now. We present it to the Land Bank Board of Directors. If approved, goes to City Council. And then once that property is transferred to us from the city, the land bank will begin immediate land care and stabilization work once we acquire it. And then concurrently, we will have one of our law firms under contract begin the quiet title process. I probably should have added it much earlier in the process when we're first asking for concurrence before it comes to the land bank board. We're also requesting a title report, so we have an idea of what is on that title and what we're going to expect during the quiet title process. Okay, thank you, Emily. Okay, so once we're about halfway through that quiet title process, so that could be somewhere between 3 and 6 months into ownership, the land bank is going to determine a price to sell the property at, and then we're going to list that property through sale. Likely either through engaging a realtor. URA is also looking into setting up a brokerage at the URA, which is again going to still give us that feel of, we're selling this property through a realtor. It's going to be available, it's going to be listed on MLS, and you're going to see it on places like Zillow.com, Realtor.com, for your average buyer to come across these properties and submit an application to purchase. So we've had some really interesting conversations so far about these requirements. So this is the proposal, but I'm really interested to get more board feedback here. So what I had laid out was that for the first month that we list this property available, we only take applications from potential owner occupants. And then if that month passes and we don't receive any applications, or we're not receiving applications from viable buyers, someone who isn't able to get the financing or present a rehab plan, then in the next month, we would then open it up to any buyers. We would then use a scorecard to rank the applications that we receive. That scorecard will also be put before the community before the sale so that we have a standard approved scorecard that we're using on sales in that community. And then we'll present those applications to the board for review and approval. So I think there's some process to be built out there if the board would like to form a smaller committee that does application review. All board members want to review all applications. We have a board approval, and then we enter into a purchase and sales contract with the buyer. Okay, so this part's really important here is our buyer requirements. So what we're proposing for this program is that there won't be income restrictions, but that we would prefer an 80 to 120% area median income buyer. To kind of put this in context, most programming at the URA that is serving first-time home buyers, the cap is usually 80% area median income or below. So this is kind of the next tier up of folks that don't qualify for that programming. I think that's important as well because we're asking people to take on a large rehab project. And likely we're going to find that it's going to be buyers in this area that are going to be able to access the funding to be able to complete that rehab. So another proposal would be to use a deed restriction requiring a buyer to live in the property for the first 5 years. And then all buyers, regardless of whether or not we end up choosing an owner occupant, someone that's going to use the property as a rental, or someone that's going to rehab it and resell the property, they will all need to be fully financed in order to cover the cost of both purchasing and rehabbing that home. They will need to provide a approved rehab plan, be under contract with the contractor. And then potentially we could also ask for a building permit number, which would mean not that they have an issued building permit, but they can show that they've applied for it, right? They've entered the system. I think for me, the way I'm envisioning this is our ideal buyer is coming to us using a mortgage rehab product. And all of these reviews are built in to that kind of lending product. So we know that the bank or mortgage product that they're using, that bank is going to be doing all of this review anyways. And so we're kind of providing a check. We're comparing that rehab plan to the one that QC and I put together to make sure it more or less matches. And I think this is really important that we're not releasing houses and then they end up sitting for a long time because people aren't prepared when they purchase. So let me pause there. I'd love to hear some feedback from the board, some thoughts before we hop into the other couple of structures.
Just one thing I'm curious about. To get a mortgage, you have to have a full kitchen, full bath. A bank is not going to finance a shell.
Right. So you'd be
So-
getting the rehab product to complete that
Okay.
work. Yeah.
I'm
So it's
sorry.
not there now, right?
Right.
They're
Yeah.
like in half of
Yeah,
these, there
they're all-
is not
yeah.
a kitchen.
Okay.
So yeah, so you'd be getting that loan to then build one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have some questions. So this, let's just take this first property, sorry. For resolution number 43, 1266 high. So you have, I estimate the cost is around $23,000. Because you have 60,000, but if we're gonna identify that, if we're identifying that we only have to, if we're assuming we only have to spend 12,700 and just adjusted the price. So we would sell it for roughly $23,000 to the buyer,
You potentially, yes.
potentially.
Yeah.
And then all these costs that's in the preliminary cost estimate looks to be, take 95, take away the 12, you're roughly around 85, 90, around $85,000 is what we're assuming they would have to continue to invest in the property. So that's getting it closer to over $100,000. And we're doing this cost estimate because
And
Can you explain
actually,
that part again?
can you switch to the area comparables slide if you don't mind, Emily? Thank you. Here we go. Okay, so we're doing that because we need to look at other sales that
Yeah.
are occurring in the neighborhood to make sure that our buyer is going to be successful in being able to acquire a loan to complete the rehab.
So what's the estimate? Yeah, I'm familiar with, I'm kind of just,
And
I'm familiar with some of
yeah,
this stuff,
sorry.
but I'm just asking these questions so we can,
No,
so I
no.
can maybe have a better understanding where the land bank is, like what the research has been done to figure this out. So this, like, what is the assumed, like, if we do put in, if the buyer puts in an additional $100,000, what would the appraisal be?
So, and I want to point out that Spring Garden is a little tough because there aren't a ton of sales. And
Because
you'll-
this is what the bank's going to go through for the rehab loan.
exactly.
So I
And
just want
so,
to kind of understand.
yes, yeah, no, I think that this is a really good, this is exactly what we want to be highlighting here. And it is also another really great reason that we are here at the URA where we get to rely on the expertise of, they're doing these kinds of analyses all the time and we're able to, help us put this together. So, right, so the bank is looking at what have properties in the area sold for. And I think on a standard, when you're looking at comparables, a couple of these sales are a little stale, but there aren't a ton of sales of rehabbed homes in the area. But from what we can find, we do have examples of, two properties on the same street selling for around $200,000. I feel that Voskamp is in the neighborhood 4 blocks away, and there was a home that sold for $355,000. It's significantly larger than the 3 we're looking at, especially 1266 High. And Vista's a little further, closer to East Allegheny. But those are 2 recent sales where we did, that sold for over 200,000. So a majority are, fully rehabbed, but I think what's promising is this 1236 High Street sale was not a rehab home. You could move into it, but it didn't have all the new updates that these other sales did.
So is this square footage incorrect then on this county real estate information? Because those are all double the.
This, right,
square
and
footage.
it's not the most, let me get my eyes on it here. Oh, where did it? Let's see. Oh, sorry, hold on 1 second. I think. Yeah, so, I mean, this is a small structure.
Like I'm just saying,
1266.
we're comparing
Right.
square footage is half of what we're looking at.
Yeah. So I think that this is significantly smaller than these sales that we're seeing. And I don't think that this house would necessarily appraise close to 200,000. I think that it's more likely here than with the other 2 that we may not be able to not be able to break even on 1266 High. But I think looking at all
I
three,
mean, we're
the
selling
Pittsburgh
it to,
Land Bank.
we're selling it to the,
To the
we're
end
not the
user.
ones taking out the construction loan.
Right. So that person, we may need to adjust our sales price on 1266 High to sell the property. But it's important that we're doing all 3 of these at the same time because we need to have that impact on the street. And so I think of the 3, this one is the one that's, because it's just so small, that we may not be able to break even on it, but we definitely will with the other 2 that we're going to
When you say
review here.
break even, you mean like reduce it from 23,000?
Right. We may have to sell for less than what that costs to clean out the property would be. But I think that it's important that we have a mix of these different types of sales because this is also going to impact what we would be able to sell the other 2 houses on the street for. And it's going to have an overall impact on High Street where there's a lot of vacancy, where if we're able to get 3 houses back on the market in these couple of blocks, then, thinking about the health of the city as a whole, that could encourage people to come back to the other properties around these 3, right? We're moving a blighted property from the street. We're getting it back on the tax rolls. And there's also the thinking about the 5 years of 50% tax recuperation that we'll make after the property goes back on the market. So I think
if
that is
I could-
a good thing. Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I was just, it seems like this is a really great enthusiastic effort by staff to get a really engaging program going. But I'm just wondering whether we have quite enough information presented before us for each of these properties in terms of the cost to the land bank and a potential sales price for us to be able to make a decision. It feels like a lot of like reviewing a potential program and then also looking at the cost for specific houses all at one time seems like it's somewhat maybe overly aggressive for us to do to take action. I guess I feel like I don't have quite enough information, or it's not presented. It's like, oh, it could be this much of ARPA funds going into this house, but maybe it could be presented in a way if we perhaps tabled this or something to be able to see a little bit more specifically for each property what the numbers are. I'm just having a little trouble with the numbers.
What additional numbers would you be looking for? What can we hone in on here? Because we still have 3 more properties to review.
Right. And I guess I'm not necessarily seeing for any of them what exactly the cost would be to the land bank and what exactly the proposed sales price would be to the end user. There's some like estimates of like, oh, it could be, this much of, an ARPA stabilization grant of up to 50,000. But it's not really giving any specifics when I look at the agenda.
Yeah. So first, I think that is just the nature of the work, is that we can only come to these properties with an estimate, and we need to be able to get them into our inventory to firm those numbers up. So I think we're always going to be in this situation where all we can really provide is that estimate. But it's also, it's a core responsibility of the land to be.
I'm not sure that I'm okay with estimates on, but the scope of work, just of like, this is the work that we're going to do. And it could be a range of price, but, I think that it would just be helpful to see like, almost like a worksheet on each property, like you're going through, but it's all sort of in different, the information is all in these different places, I just think it is difficult for us to be making like the kind of decision, that feels responsible on our part.
So, yeah, and I think that the general, we're providing the general calculation that we made was that, can we make an investment of less than $50,000 in this house to make it accessible and stabilize it, and then list it on the market and have it something accessible to an average buyer. And so all of these are meeting that baseline criteria of it will take much less than 50,000 to do that initial investment. So, but I can point those numbers out. I apologize that they weren't, we can provide the board the breakout of the exact stabilization costs. I apologize that wasn't highlighted more clearly in the report. So, but I think that these are all fall within that criteria. I'd really like to get through them. Because we're looking at least 3 months to acquire these from the city's inventory. And so adding another month is another month that these are going to sit with no attention and no intervention.
So am I understanding then just the only cost then to the land bank initially is, and I'm still looking at the first one, is the 12,700, the removal of debris and cleaning.
Right.
There's no other money that the land bank is going to And then based on that, is that how you are going to come up with how much to then sell it to? I mean, none of this other stuff matters.
Right.
Because that's all going to be the responsibility of the end user. Is
Right.
that correct?
Right.
So do we really even need to spend time and energy like coming up with all of these estimates? Because everybody, the buyers are all going to have different situations, different access to funding, different skill sets that might enable them to do some things very, very cheaply. They might be contractors, have a brother, uncle that's a contractor. So if we're just looking at what our investment is, then can we just kind of figure out what to, I mean, we can have an idea, but I mean, what it ends up selling for is going to be the buyer's the end user's responsibility.
Right.
And all of the expenses to get it to where it needs to be able to market it is going to be the end user's responsibility.
I think the only reason that we need this estimate is we have to make sure that there's not an appraisal gap. That's really, if we take something on that's not sellable,
So
it's
when
going to
you
be
say
significantly
appraisal
more.
gap, I'm sorry, Sharon, I mean.
Oh, yeah, please,
But
yeah.
you mean at the end users, what they put it on the market for? Or do you mean for
Kinda.
us to sell it? Are
So-
you trying to put it on the multi-list to sell it as a shell?
Yes. And so like if me, the resident wants to buy this product and I go to buy the house and I go to the bank and I say, can you give me a loan to rehab it? Well, the bank is going to say, well, what's that house worth when you're going to be done? Okay, we see the numbers work out here that if you rehab this, you put 100 into it, it'll be worth 150 when you're done. So we're happy to give you that loan. But if there aren't area comparables that are higher than what that rehab cost is going to be, then it's a much larger risk for us to take on. And
But I
that's
don't
why I want to have those two numbers.
But
the
how is
only
it a
reason.
risk for us once we sell it? You mean a
We
risk
can't
that
sell it. We can't sell it. That's why, because it won't sell. No one will be able to purchase the property and rehab it if they can't get a loan to rehab the property. So that's why we will be stuck with it if it's not something that
I
we need to be
understand
more
that, but I don't
creative.
see that happening. And maybe I'm being.
Yeah, with these,
Yeah.
right, we're good because we were able to look at those two numbers. Yeah, but there are other areas of town where we're going to have to be much more careful
Mhm.
or have a different plan in place to make sure that those
it
numbers
works.
will work. Yeah. Mhm.
Chairperson Mazza.
So I think we're moving a little too fast here because we're getting into an area which now we're pretty much speculating on, okay, we're taking a property in, but then, okay, we're going to fix the white box. We don't even have a buyer. We don't know if anybody wants that property, and hear me out. And then, okay, say nobody buys it within the first month. Oh, we got to drop the price. And now we're getting into the game here where we can't get into the game or the business of losing the money that we're putting on these properties. If we're going to get into the business of selling properties, we got to do it the right way. And we need a buyer, and we need those things, because I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves
So
right now.
But the
I mean,
problem is that the major barrier for the buyers that we want, right? A 80 to 20%, 120%, like just average buyer on the market, they aren't going to wait a year between the day that they pick the house out and the day they can buy it. So for us to do this analysis ahead of time and say, we can see the numbers work on this house, and this is absolutely going to be a house that will sell when we acquire it, and then we have some cushion here with our ARPA funds to make sure that we can make that happen. We've removed all those barriers. And so we're creating a program that doesn't work for our end user if we're expecting them to ask for the house a year ahead of time. We've got to clear those barriers and then list it for
I
sale.
understand that, but these houses have been sitting for how long anyway? So if we wait another month before we make a decision, then we make the decision with all the correct information and, fair and equitable decision. So we're doing the right thing with the taxpayer dollars, with transparency, with everything we're trying to do and help the right people, and make sure we can get people in the queue that are probably could be possibly are interested in the property saying, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Is there anybody out there in the community that wants to buy the property? Then we can help them get that ball rolling there too. So I think we need to think this thing through a little bit better. That's my opinion. Thank you.
What
So-
additional information? Yeah,
So,
very good.
so hearing everyone's, a lot of people have some concerns, and rightly so. I mean, I think this for sale new program would be a big one. And I think when we think of for sale, it's easy when there's not parameters on who we're actually trying to, who are potential buyers are. And we're putting up 80 to 120, which I mean, not all for, but even when we go there, if we don't have buyers that are within 80 to 120, then, our next step is to go full market on, what that would be and the comfortability of members and what that is. So I think there's even, I know for me, I would want to know a little bit about that step in terms of when we would, how we predicted 80 to 120, and then the next process, 80%, 80% AMI to 120. And then if that does not work out.
Yeah, then it would be open to the market.
It would
and
be
we
open to the
just-
market.
We want to make sure that they're a responsible
Yeah.
buyer. They're financed and they.
But
have
I
a
think
plan to
just,
complete the
hearing, others' concerns, but then I was just thinking about initial concern that I had, and I was looking at some of these price estimates and just thinking that they are somewhat low from, I'm not an expert, but just some prices that I've heard people who are renovating, that even the kitchen at 10,000, materials alone would be 10,000. And then to do the work to actually hire a contractor would be somewhat. So I'm not putting it, and I appreciate all the work that everyone's done here. I guess what I'm hearing is that, it would be helpful to have a series of maybe a couple meetings, maybe 2-3 meetings before our next board meeting, so that we could, we could figure this out. But in terms of understanding how we arrived at some of these numbers, because I think ultimately we want to hit the ground running with a for sale program, and we don't want to fall short on something, since we've been
Yeah, so
we've been doing so well. And I think that all the work that's been put in this is phenomenal, because it's activating this conversation.
we would be happy to provide the board with a different layout of how we're providing this information. I apologize that it's not clear, but these numbers make a lot of sense. This is the bread and butter work of what the Tricog Land Bank does every day. This is, we should be gearing up to be doing dozens and dozens of these types of sales. And so I would implore the board to still consider voting to move these forward, because it's going to take us 3 months to get them from the city. It's going to be the middle of the summer. We really need to be able to get to work and be prepared to clear these, because we have dozens more that we need to get to. So I think that you'll see that these numbers make sense. We're going to be able to sell these. And even though the estimates are might be a little bit low, they're still coming in way below what the median sales for the community are. So there shouldn't be any trouble for someone to get more if they needed more funding to cover more costs. That we've taken that cushion into consideration.
Any other discussion? Is there?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
So the buyers then that you're targeting, you're also you're looking at helping them purchase these, because they're going to be the 80 to 120 AMI. So they'll be eligible until 2025 for, the own PGH funds. Is that how you're kind of moving?
So these buyers don't qualify for help. So, and again, it's just a preference.
80%?
Yeah, the cap for own PGH is you have to be 80% or below.
Right, so.
If we get
An 80% or yeah.
The other problem with own PGH right now is that you can't take a house on like this with an
No,
own
right, that's
PGH.
right. Okay.
It has to be move-in ready. So there really isn't any programming that our buyers are going to qualify
So
for,
I thought I was.
which is why the income is like a much less. We can't have a kind
No,
of restriction because it doesn't really match up.
then
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought I was hearing you say, that we wanted to help them. We'll be helping these buyers. So.
Yeah, they're the next tier up. So the existing programming that's usually available is for 80% and below. The buyers that we're likely going to see for
Mhm.
this program are above that threshold. There isn't anything available for
Okay,
them for assistance.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, with,
so,
are there any other discussion? Because I'm, just want to, I know we have more on our agenda, but I'm gonna,
did we resolve this?
well, I'm gonna ask, what the motion is. So I just want to make sure that the discussion is,
Do we want to?
or maybe someone could, if someone on, I just want to make sure every name that I see on there is who is on the call, or there are more individuals that are on the call, that are on the
Correct.
board.
I think Wanda is the only member that's
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm seeing, if
online.
there's another board member on, that I can
Can we go?
just see their hand raised if they do have a question.
Can we go to the next?
No, I'm here and I'm listening, and I think if it is bread and butter of the land bank, maybe, a motion to table this and really think through it before, and I understand it's another month, but it just seems like, it's not quite ready, for us to move forward with the information that we feel that we
Yeah.
need.
If we are seeking to hold, and our objective is to consider this next month, we would then make a motion to hold until next board meeting. But it's up to the, is it? So I would just say, I think that, motion to take, if that is the direction we'll go, is we want to hold it. We just want to hold till next board meeting. So, what's the, would someone like to make a motion? What is the motion?
I'll make a motion to hold till next board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is, any abstentions? So that's held until, so let's just be clear, resolution 43, 44, 45, 46, and this one doesn't have, this was read into the next one that was E, which was not recommended. There's not a resolution number on it. But it is a resolution to pass it. So we'll,
That property
Yeah,
for
it was-
acquisition. but
it was
we'll hold
read,
it
so
all
let's
the
just-
same.
let's just hold that as well. We'll talk about that next. So that'd be resolutions 43 through, it doesn't have a number, so. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure what to do about that, but let's treat it this way. The resolution would be, I'm sorry, the action would be to hold 43 through 46 and the resolution for the acquisition of 1238 High Street. Just so we're clear for the public. Okay. Let's move on to our next resolution number 47.
Resolution number 47, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 56F, Lot 282 in the 24th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Rising Tide Partners.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? Sorry, here's.
Second.
Chairman, I should reread the resolution. These properties are in the 15th Ward, not the 24th Ward.
Thank you.
That's what-
Resolution number 47, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 56F, Lot 282 in the 15th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Rising Tide Partners.
Is there a motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
These properties are the assembly of 5. They are proposed to be sold to Rising Tide Partners. The acquisition at this point is primarily for blight remediation. And were brought to our attention by Councilmember Warwick The Rising Tide Partners has received the way that they operate in communities is they enter into an MOU and they have an additional board that votes to approve of sales acquisitions. So they've gone through that process and received that approval on the community side for support to acquire. And then they'll look to do immediate blight remediation. We did hear from a resident today that has significant concerns about the condition of these buildings. And then the intention would be to do additional site assembly to make this available for a future LIHTC application. Earliest would be 2025 application. So, and that will apply to the next 5 properties that we're gonna present.
Any further discussion from members? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 48.
Resolution number 48, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 56F, Lot 302 in the 15th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Rising Tide Partners.
Can you continue to read all corresponding? I believe these are several row houses that
Mhm.
they're looking to acquire, so let's continue on until resolution number 51. Continue to read to it.
Resolution number 49, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 56F, Lot 303 in the 15th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Rising Tide Partners. Resolution number 50, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 56F, Lot 304 in the 15th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Rising Tide Partners. Resolution number 51, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 56F, Lot 307 in the 15th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Rising Tide Partners. And resolution number 52, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block. I'll pause here because this is a different ward. Would you like me to read this one as well, Chairman?
Resolution, we're on to resolution 51 separate. Okay, yeah, let's pause then. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All right, discussion.
Oh,
We were
this
to
is,
go with
yes,
the
yeah, this,
properties that we.
right. These are the 5 that there's 2 structures and 3 lots. There would be immediate stabilization, which may include the demolition of the 2 structures. Again, for future site assembly by Rising Tide Partners.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against, abstentions? Any opposed, abstentions? Motion passes. Moves on to the next resolution.
Resolution number 52, authorizing the acquisition by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 33E, Lot 214 in the 30th Ward from the City of Pittsburgh and sale of the same parcel to Hilltop Alliance.
Motion to approve. Is there
So moved.
So moved.
a second? Okay. All right, is there a discussion?
This is a proposed acquisition by Hilltop Alliance to acquire and immediately stabilize 424 Suncrest Street, currently in the city's inventory. The land bank would be providing ARPA stabilization grant funding to stabilize that property. As Hilltop Alliance works to fully fund and rehab this, and this would go to an 80% AMI home buyer per the restrictions of the funding they will use to rehab the property.
You said this will go to Hilltop Alliance?
Yes. Yeah, this is a property they requested through treasurer's sale, kind of like a prior property reserve property.
Any other further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? Motion passes. That brings us on to our next agenda item, URA owned properties.
Resolution number 53, authorizing the acquisition from the Urban Redevelopment Authority by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 174B, lots 111 and 171 in the 13th Ward for a price of $500 per parcel plus costs, using ARPA funds and sale of the same properties to Habitat for Humanity of Greater Pittsburgh.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
These are a proposed sale to Habitat for Humanity, who would build two new construction affordable homes on these parcels. Their estimated time to begin construction would be April 2025.
And these are currently empty lots.
Right.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed or abstentions? All right, motion passes. Bring us on to our next resolution.
The final property resolution for today is resolution number 54, authorizing the acquisition from the Urban Redevelopment Authority by the Pittsburgh Land Bank of Block 50G, Lot 76 in the 10th Ward for a price of $500 plus costs, using ARPA funds, and sale of the same property to Abigail and Alex Callum.
Is there a motion?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
All right, discussion on this property?
So this property is going to follow, is going to be very similar to the residential sales program that we were discussing earlier. And actually, Emily, it might be helpful to go back to the buyer slide, the buyer requirements, and we can go back to that one just to review. So we had some private buyers who had been applying to both the city and the URA to purchase property in Garfield. They're interested in building a single family home that they are going to live in. So our proposal today, so this buyer they've been pre-approved. They've presented they've a very general idea of the home that they're expecting to build and the cost, and that they've been pre-qualified for that amount of funding. So if the board approves this sale today, the sale will be contingent upon the buyer being fully financed to cover the cost of the construction of the home. And they'll need that approved rehab plan and be under contract with, it'll be a builder in this case. And we're looking for them to have approved zoning approval as well, so that we know that it will be feasible to build a house on this property. But what's important in this case, and as we're moving, as we're beginning to build programming where we're selling directly to residents, again, addressing that issue of wanting to remove barriers and make sure that these sales feel like a private market sale so that our properties are accessible to residents. We don't want to ask a private buyer looking to build a single family home to invest thousands of dollars to figure out if a lot is buildable before they're under contract. So we have this kind of basic information to know that the project looks feasible. And then once we have that purchase and sales contract in place, that's then when this buyer is going to go in to, hire their architect to figure out what zoning code will allow them to build, to figure out what is under the ground and what might affect a foundation. So they're going to do all that due diligence under the purchase and sales contract. So just kind of as an overview, I'm sure we will be seeing more of these in the future. And again, just like we identified some of those structures that would be appropriate to sell to end users, we hope to be able to do that work with lots as well, right? To do that work up front to make sure zoning allows a home to be built there and that there isn't anything hiding under the ground that would prevent a home to be constructed on the lot. But in this case, because these applicants have been applying for months and months, and are interested, this is how we are beginning to approach this kind of sale.
How much were they pre-approved for?
600,000 is the proposed cost of construction.
How long is the contingency period for them to complete all of that?
According to our policy and procedures, it is 6 months upon the time of entering into that purchase and sales agreement.
And so you said they're gonna have to go through zoning?
Yes, yeah, we're gonna ask that they have issued zoning approval before we complete a sale. Because
And
that's the
that,
only way
you-
that yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Does that zoning approval have? Is there any sign offs from our utilities so that there's not a water line?
In the middle of the lot?
Yeah, in the middle of the lot. like we've
Exactly, yeah. I
Seen before.
think that's what we're gonna be looking to make sure that
I would.
they
yeah,
complete that.
There are definitely
Yeah.
surprises for people that have gone down this road before. So let's, yeah, so there is a way to, if in that process they're finding out, they have the option to bring it back to us.
Right. So there could be a possibility they find something like that, and this may actually not be a developable lot.
What's that period?
So like I said, our policies and procedures say 6 months. You know, of course, there is flexibility if something like that were to occur, you know, or they may, if it's not a developable lot, maybe we're coming back to the board, you know, if they identify something else to try and build.
Whose district is this?
This is Councilman Kahari Mosley's district, District 9.
Yeah, I did want to say I had an opportunity to have a conversation with Mr. Callum. The other day we talked on the phone for actually a considerable amount of time, and I was pleased to hear that him and Abigail have been getting involved with the community in Garfield already. And actually, I didn't even realize that we had actually met at a Bloomfield Garfield meeting that I spoke at back in January. So they're integrating themselves into the community, and I did just talk about some of the realities of neighborhoods like Garfield that are in transition, and how it could be received by some residents, building a brand new house or on an empty lot, and how some folks may receive that favorably and some folks may not receive that favorably, and so I really wanted to highlight the importance of if this all goes through, to really, underscore the importance of, being a good neighbor and integrating themselves into the community in a positive way. And he agreed and explained that, one of the reasons why they were going, this particular route, was that they really, have developed an affinity for Garfield and wanted to move into Garfield, but didn't want to purchase one of the existing, more affordable homes, wanted to leave that on the market for potentially another family that had, less resources than them. And they wanted to go this route to keep some of the existing affordable housing in Garfield on the market for someone else that would have been more appropriate for. So, at this point, I'm in support of moving this forward. I'm going to continue to be engaged in conversation with the Callum family, and interested to see how all this moves from a technical standpoint, but also again continuing to encourage them to understand the realities of these communities in transition, to ensure that they want to be positive neighbors and help not kind of exacerbate, the current tensions and anxiety that's in neighborhoods like Garfield.
Thank you. So this lot, were there any ever, so this was from the URA, right?
Yes.
Were there any
Currently
prior,
URA's inventory.
any of their prior offers on this property?
Yeah, and so maybe to talk about this
Because I see the purchase price
lot.
48,000. And
that's a
so
market
what we
rate.
were selling. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious if there were any previous offers, and there's been in the inventory for some time, right?
Yeah, and I guess we don't know for this one in particular, but there had been a project that's, probably more than 5 years old now that's no longer, that is no longer moving forward, for a housing development here on this set of lots. And then one block over, there's another large, a whole block of vacancy that the URA has just acquired with the intention of conveying to City of Bridges and a module to do a mixed income development of homes. So I think I want to say that one will be a 40% affordable. But for this one in particular, there hasn't been, we did receive other applications. So the URA received other applications from other residents on the street looking to purchase side lots. And there was another lot that we had been looking at that we pivoted to this one because there was interest in from other neighbors in the lot. So, but for this one in particular, there are no other active applications. This is the only one.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. That brings us to public comment. And we do public comment at the beginning and end of each land bank board meeting. And if you could please use the raise hand function in the bottom of the menu if you wish to speak during public comment. As a reminder, public commenters will have to state their name, neighborhood, and or organization affiliation. So you have 3 minutes to speak. Do we have any speakers?
Let me pull up our participants here. And as I'm doing that, if I could make one comment I forgot to mention that applied to our other sales here in terms of where the community can engage in these sales. All of these sales will now go before City Council. So there's opportunity there for the residents to weigh in. We also have an objection process where if we receive 15 or more petitions, we will hold a community meeting pertaining to the sale. And then for most of these projects that are new development, they will go through a zoning process that will also require a community meeting to discuss the proposed project. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. And then just to pause for a second, I don't see any hands among our participants. Is there anyone who would like to speak today? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no raised hands, that should exhaust public comment. Back to you, Chairman.
All right, thanks. And that brings us to having exhausted all of our business. We're at the end of our agenda here. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I did want to make just a quick comment.
Any announcements, I should say?
No, well, not announcement. I did want to just say, based on, your suggestion, about the individual sales program and, some of the reluctance of the board members of moving forward, I did want to suggest that we do some sort of a briefing before next month's meeting so that we can kind of dig into it more and wrap our heads around it more so that, we're more prepared next month, to make a decision, one way or another about how we want to, move forward.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to respond. Definitely hearing, what you're saying. I've been thinking about how to approach this. So I was thinking we could, discuss what we'd like to see in that briefing and get that scheduled. So I was going to make some calls to you all and see what the appetite is for, who we should have at the briefing so we can fully understand, how we're going to venture into this for sale process. But thanks for bringing, that to the public.
No, I agree. And I want to thank everybody for their hard work. Just wanted to take a little pause and make sure we get this thing right. That's all. Great job, though.
Really fully understand it, digest it, and, you know, be able to see it. But it is a great idea. And you guys did put a lot of work into it. So it's exciting.
Can everyone stay after so we can find a time before we?
I have to run,
Can we
but
leave?
you know, whatever works for folks.
We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Is there, are there any other further comments or?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, all right, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and we are adjourned. Thank you.